Hey, yo, black people, what's up?
A lot of Africans feel disconnected from the Western blacks. You guys don't identify with us. The Western blacks feel like they are better than the black Africans. Do you prefer to be called Black American or African American? Do you believe in the narrative that blacks are the most self-hating race of all races? African roots. You're welcome to AfroViet TV. This is African Roots, and today's show we have two very important personalities in the black community in Vietnam. We have I would just allow them to introduce themselves, but I'm very excited for this series that we are starting with the African Roots, and we are so blessed. I'm so glad to have them here today to talk about the issues that are affecting the black community in general, the Africans, the African Americans, the African Canadians. So today I welcome my elders, my brothers. Please guys, introduce yourselves.
You go first.
Why? Because I'm the oldest.
Age before
We're age before beauty. Oh, well, we can do both. I'm J.K. Hobson. My name is Jawanza Kalunji Hobson. My stage name is J.K. Hobson because Jawanza Kalunji Hobson is not a good stage name for comedy. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I run Asia Out Loud. I do stand-up comedy under the name The Outsiders. And I've been living in Saigon for almost 4 years. Living in Vietnam for almost 5.
And where are you from, Jawanza?
I was born in Puerto Rico.
In Puerto Rico?
Yeah, and I grew up in New York City. And I lived in Los Angeles for almost 16 years before I came out here.
So, if I understand correctly, that makes him an American.
Yeah, it does. I was born in Puerto Rico, which is another country, but it is a United States territory. And I grew up in the United States, so I guess I'm an American.
Nice. So this handsome-looking fella over there.
My name is Hayden Lowry. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I've been in Vietnam now about 14 years, off and on.
Nice.
Came here originally as a filmmaker, post-production specialist. So, wow. I'm probably one of the first black dudes in this industry, in this country. But did that for about 10 years and then went back to Canada. I went to Bermuda, moved to Bermuda with my girlfriend, and we came back 2 years later with our families, and I'm here making Jamaican beef patties now.
Oh, wow. And you've been living in Vietnam ever since?
Well, no, I originally came in 2005, like I said, spent 10 years, and then moved to Bermuda for 2, and I came back.
Okay, with your girlfriend?
Well, when I came back, it was my wife.
Oh, your wife. I was going to say, you better put some respect on her name.
You left with the girlfriend, and then you came back, you returned with the wife.
Exactly.
That's awesome. What have you enjoyed most in Vietnam? And why have you stayed for long, and how long do you plan to stay?
Well, I've been here the longest. I guess I'll go first. I initially came here on a 1-year contract. I came here to, just kind of see what the other side of the planet was saying. And, I had other opportunities in the Caribbean where my family's from. But I took the job that paid the least. It was the furthest away from home simply for the adventure of it all. And what was supposed to be simply just, an opportunity to see the other side of the world and go home ended up being, 14 years of my life. But I feel like I came to Vietnam at a really interesting time in its history. Coming from a city like Toronto, there's a lot of contrast, but I just felt like I was really stepping into something fresh and interesting, and there was a pull, an attraction to stay and see where this all goes, to kind of be witness to it, and it's been a fun ride.
Nice, nice. What about you, Jawanza?
I originally came to Vietnam, so I have kind of an interesting story, but I left school in my early 20s and I had a music career. Okay. And my music career was great, and then when it tanked, I went back to school. And when I went back to school, I was a part of a study abroad program. I came to Vietnam to study Vietnamese history. And so I stayed here for a couple of months and I fell in love with it.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I came back the next year on a Fulbright scholarship from 2016 to 2017. And during that year, the election happened in the United States and Donald Trump was elected president. I decided to stay for a while. So I've been here ever since.
Okay, now this is very interesting because I've been here longer than you have.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And
I came in 2005.
Yeah, so you're only talking to one of us that's been here longer than you have. I've been here for almost 5 years, yeah.
Awesome. All right, so do you plan to stay here longer, or do you feel like this is the place now, this is your home?
I plan to stay here longer. I don't know if I'm gonna stay here forever, you know? I mean, the way that my life trajectory has been, it's just been like kind of a book that's writing itself. Like, you know, when I moved to Los Angeles from New York, I moved there for a year. I ended up being there for almost 16. You know what I mean? I came here for a year as well. So I'm not sure what's in store, but I love it here. You know, I don't have any plans on leaving anytime soon, you know? And if you were asking why, I just experience freedom here in a way that I just don't in the place that they call the land of the free, you know? And so I enjoy that a lot. So that's one of the many reasons why I stay here.
What about you, Hayden?
Well, for me, it was more at the time when I was, the first 10 years that I was here as a bachelor. I was like just by myself. And to be honest, when I left in 2015, I was done. I didn't think I was coming back. Right? It's like, all right, as much as it was an exciting time, as I said earlier, and I found it attractive, there came a point where I felt I wasn't advancing anymore and I needed to move on with my life. And a change of place was what was necessary. But I came back, and since coming back, I mean, COVID, obviously, the country's COVID response has played into this, but you know, I feel as if there really isn't any safer, better place on the planet for me to be with 2 kids and a wife, right? My kid, I had a kid here. My eldest is in school, he's doing really, really well. My wife is happy in her job and is, you know, doing really, really well. There really is no reason for us to run away. Both my wife and I have had you know, family emergencies happen, and we've come to discover, all right, we can get home within 24 hours.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not that urgent for us to be really, really close to family when a plane could get us there in fairly quick time. So we've settled into an existence here. And to be honest, Saigon, Vietnam as a whole is really family friendly. Exactly. It's a society that's really geared towards people with kids, and the culture is really family oriented. So it's right now in my life, it's a good fit. We're not in any rush to go anywhere.
So in plain English, what I can decipher from these 2 guys is that they also love Vietnam as much as I do. And now, I want to ask this question to both of you. What do you prefer? To be called Black Canadian, Black American, or African Canadian, or African American?
Well, African American, to my understanding, it usually denotes someone of African descent whose ancestors were also like a part of the African diaspora in America. So in other words, the ancestors, the descendants of peoples who were African slaves in America. My family, my grandparents on my dad's side are from Jamaica, right? So they immigrated to the United States in, I guess, the 1930s, which like blows my mind that they would, that they moved to the US on purpose. In the 1930s, like, damn, that's, wow.
What was going on in Jamaica?
You know, and, you know, I have, their struggle, you know, is part of, you know, why I'm able to be here today. So I have to always be in appreciation of my ancestors, my grandparents for that, you know. But for that reason, I'm technically not African American. So Black is fine, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latino. You know, it's I'm not like really hardcore, like, oh, you know, I'm not gonna check somebody, you know. But I'm definitely Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, Black American, Black.
Black.
Yeah.
What about you, Hayden?
Yeah.
Well, I'm Black. Wherever it is I go, that's what I'm going to be seen as. That's not lost on me. And all the designations, you know, these cultural designations, African Canadian, African American, whatever. Nobody knows that until you sit down and talk with them and they tell you where they're from. For you to have any sort of grip on that, right? So if somebody just says he's the Black guy, I'm not gonna get mad. Yeah, that's what
That's what you identify.
That's what I'm perceived at.
Because why I ask this question is because a lot of I have a lot of white friends as well who think that calling you a Black guy is like a racist term.
I think
that says more about them than it does about you.
Us. Exactly.
Like they'd be like, you know, like if they try to, let's say they try to describe Hayden, right, to maybe another Black person, and they'd be like, yeah, you know Hayden, he's bald, no beard, pink shirt, because they don't want to say Black, but if they're saying that, it's because they think something's wrong with being Black. I don't think anything's wrong with being Black.
Right,
so
there's nothing wrong, exactly.
Right.
If you're coming from a place of perceiving Black as a negative, right, then using it as a proper adjective is going to cause you some consternation, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you in your mind you don't see this as a positive, right? When particularly in the historical context of whiteness in the West, yeah, it's going to give them fits. Right? But as far as we're concerned, like I don't want to speak for him, but if somebody says, hey, he's the Black guy with the glasses and bald head, no, why am I going to trip?
Right.
Like, why?
Right.
So, you know, being an African and growing up, being influenced by Western culture, like being Americans and watching American movies and listening to American music, and following closely to all the politics that surrounds American politics and the environs. I've always had this conversation. I've always had this confusion as well. Why Black people get called African Americans, or do you know how many Blacks that don't even know where Africa is? So what's the point calling somebody from Jamaica, somebody from Hawaii, somebody from Australia? They are Black. So if you keep giving the identity about Black Australian or African Australian, African American, African Canadian, we are all Black.
But I think what you're speaking to more is the use of a term that originated in the United States.
Yes.
And let's be honest, American movies, American music, American media pervades the earth. Okay, it's everywhere. So it's to be expected that term is more prominent in people's minds because it's the one that gets projected, right? Does it speak to all of us? No. Okay, again, as I said earlier, it's an ethnic marker. It speaks to our ethnicity within a certain culture, right? More so than it does to our pigmentation. You get me? So I don't know who this is for here. If Vietnamese people are having trouble with this, or if it's you as an African not liking it, which I could understand to some degree. I think, you know, I don't get bogged down by this too much. And as far as white folks is being uncomfortable with not knowing that's their problem to solve, not mine.
And if I could add to that though, I think what happened especially in the 60s and 70s, because I think for a lot of people, just being Black it's sort of like this binary thing of just, oh, what are you Black? Oh, you're just not white, Black. And so I think for a long time in the United States, especially in the 60s and 70s, like rather than just identify ourselves as being as opposed to white, no, like we're African, we are people of African descent.
Yeah,
like all like
just as much American as you.
Yeah. And like so much of American culture comes from Black people or people of African descent. But I think there was like wanting to identify with something other than like our own oppression, right? Oh, so we're the descendants of slaves. Because I mean, I'm the descendant of slaves also, just British slaves, not American slaves, right? So rather than just be like, oh, well, this is the beginning of what my identity is feeling, oh, no, there is definitely some attachment, you know, or some, we understand that there's a connection to the motherland of Africa, you know? So that's very important for people.
I want to put it to you guys that a lot of Africans feel disconnected from the Western Blacks. They feel like you guys don't identify with us. And they feel like there is a divide between the Western Blacks and the African Blacks. Why do you think that is?
Why do they feel that way?
Yeah.
That'd be. Take this one first, or?
I mean, well, we've been going with age before beauty.
Have to.
I mean, I can't speak for them. If they feel that way, that would be a good question to ask them. But I definitely, I have felt it as well, to be honest, you know. And I remember the first time that, and this is anecdotal evidence, right? So this is just like an experience here. But I was living in Hanoi when I was doing my orientation for Fulbright. And I remember it was like in the beer, kind of like the Boy Vien area, you know, in the old quarter. And I seen a bunch of African brothers just like, and the thing is, I lived in Hue for 2 months before that, and I would see like maybe 1 or 2 other Black people. You know, it'd be always, you know, it would be, you get one of 2 things. You either get the, hey, it was up, or even just like they act like they don't see you. You know what I mean? Like it's like I know you see me talk. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's like this sea of people. You know, so it can go either way. Like I realized, I remember this one day, I was so happy. I seen like a big group of, you know, I think I knew somehow intuitively that they were Africans. And I was like, hey, yo, Black people, what's up? And they were just like, you know, man, what you trying to, what's? And I think, and I thought about this a lot. And at first I was like, damn, wow. But so maybe it was like I came on too strong. Like, we're not Black. So yeah, I've definitely experienced that. It is a very which came first, the chicken or the egg kind of situation, you know what I mean? I don't know where that started or why that is. You know, why is there a, you know, there's obviously African culture and African American culture, Black culture in America are different, you know. But I'm friends with a lot of people that are different. You know, it doesn't mean that we can't connect, but there seems to be like a particular like, you know what I mean? So, but I can't speak on what the source of it is.
I think it's worth keeping in mind anytime we have this conversation about interconnectedness within the diasporic community, the diasporic African community, that we recognize that the community is just that, diasporic. I do have to say that I'm not African from Africa, but even American people are confused by me. I'm Canadian, right? So that usually trips Americans up. And a lot of people from the rest of the world too, right? Because they don't, any Black Canadians other than Drake do people know, right? But I'm a first generation Canadian, meaning I was born there, but none of my family, other than my sisters and brothers, are, right? Everybody comes from somewhere in the Caribbean, Trinidad or Jamaica, right? So add to that, coming from a city like Toronto, which is arguably the most multicultural city on the planet. I mean, do you want to talk about mixed ethnicity? You guys put New York, you got to put Toronto and London in that conversation. It's going to be one of those 3, but we can argue who that is. But bottom line, coming from a city like that, where there are tons of Africans, right? You get people from across the diaspora all in one place. In Toronto, I know I had a false sense of things because we were all forced to live. It's Babylon. We're all forced, regardless of where we're from, forced to live together and come to some understanding of each other. But outside of that, I think the tribalism does play a role. It does impact who we choose as our circle of friends. Excuse me. As the admin for Black in Saigon, I see the cliques at 20,000 feet.
Can you talk about what that is? I don't think we talked about that.
No, we haven't talked. So this is a quick aside. I'm the admin for the only largest, I don't know, Black diasporic Black Facebook group in Vietnam.
Black Facebook group.
No. I don't do this often. Forgive my inelegance in describing it. But it's a group where Black people from around the world come together to talk with each other, help each other out, and navigate their existence here in Saigon. And I see who the cliques are and who hangs out with who, and it's very much along nationalistic and tribal lines, right? And you say African quite a lot since we've started this conversation. And come on, man, that's 60 odd countries. All right, you better believe that y'all don't get along necessarily. There's some massive cultural differences. And I mean, we're talking to a Vietnamese audience to some extent here. If the Chinese and the Vietnamese are neighbors and they have history and they don't always see eye to eye, right? What's to prevent that from happening where we're from?
Are you saying that Black people are not a monolith?
I'm saying that Black people are not a monolith, though we have a shared and common history and life experience. Both things can be true.
That's true.
Both things can be true.
I would agree.
So I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but just to sum it up, I feel like people don't necessarily think about the fact that we are diasporic, that our geographies play a role in shaping how we perceive each other. And we all have this tendency to lean towards those who have shared experiences to make our friends and family. That's just the natural truth of it. So it happens even amongst Black people.
Okay. Now, let me tell you why, from listening to a few African guys that have come to me, Black African guys that have been in my office, or maybe I've had the opportunity to have a conversation with them. They feel like if they meet like an American dude in a club or on the street, that there's not a connection. That sometimes even if they have an argument, like you guys feel like you better than the Africans. The Western Blacks feel like they are better than the Black Africans. So that disconnect exists.
Fortunate to actually have African friends.
Yeah, I know African people.
I actually have African friends. So.
But then is that like I'm not racist? I have friends of Black people.
I would say it's not necessarily about me. It's more about them in this instance, because like we both were friends with Sipo. No, okay, maybe Sipo's not the best example because he's British. He's British, right? We can't even use Quentin because Quentin, like me, is Canadian, right? But I think we're beginning to see a pattern, right? Our existence as people of color, it's filtered through a Western culture. I was born and raised in Toronto. The way I speak, the way I view the world is impacted by that. All right. I probably would be much more quote unquote Canadian if it weren't for the fact that I had parents from Trinidad who worked their asses off so that they could provide myself and my sister a yearly opportunity to go home. And when I say home, I'm talking Trinidad in this instance, to meet and spend quality time with friends, my mom's old friends, and my family, my extended family, every year until I was 18 years old. Christmas, Easter holiday, or a summer holiday, we were on a plane, okay? And I didn't come from I'm an immigrant family. We didn't have money, but they found a way. And my community, where I grew up, nobody had money. We're all immigrant kids. So I was the lucky one. People were wondering how my mom would do it, but she found a way. She found a way, okay? So that shaped my existence. I feel like If somebody's looking at me and seeing that I don't identify with them, it's probably because you haven't spent enough time to sit and talk with me to find out where the parallels lie.
Yeah.
Right? On a personal level, on a macro level, hey, we all got to understand that life in Nigeria is very different for a Nigerian than it is for that same Nigerian in London, than it is for that same Nigerian in New York City or in Toronto or wherever that Nigerian may be. Okay, that geography, the culture that place is going to impact them. And if that's the first thing people see, it's going to put up a wall.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to put this straight to you. Do you believe in the narrative that blacks are the most self-hating race of all races?
No. No. I don't ascribe to that. No.
No, here's I will say on that. White people don't have to grapple with their whiteness. They don't. That's not an exercise for the most part that they probably get dragged for saying this. But I just don't think it's something that, not until recently, that they do.
But they don't grapple with whiteness because that's like they see. Well, they see whiteness as being normality.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like so they don't even.
They don't consider its impact on them or the people around them. As black folks, particularly black folks that live in Western society, we absolutely have to grapple with that. Asian people as well. There's no Vietnamese person that's lived in North America that can say they've never had to consider the contrast of their culture and their skin on that of the society that they're in. You have no choice.
Or if they do, they're like on that, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like you're lost. You're lost.
Shit.
Yeah, you're lost if you're not. You're lost if you're not. If you think you truly are equal to white people in white people land, like you're lost.
Right.
You're not dealing with the full deck.
Right? I mean, yeah. So we have to grapple with it, you know, but we also love being black. You know? Yeah, you know?
It's all you got though, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're not gonna be happy to make the best of what you have, what you're given, all right, that's on you, that's not on anybody else, right? So.
I mean, it's just, I would just say as on a macro and a micro level, you know, having to survive and work through adversity, it brings something out of an individual, out of a people. As well, I was thinking about this on the way over here. You know, Nas says sleep is the cousin of death, right? I always say mediocrity is the cousin of privilege.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So like if everything is just like easy peasy, but I don't know any mediocre black folks out here at all, because we wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? So, you know, so yeah, I love it.
All right, talking about that, I've been here for a while, and I've heard from both sides of the aisle, Western blacks, African blacks. At the end of the day, we are all blacks.
Yeah, of course. That's why when you said like, oh, Western blacks think they're better than Africans. That's not true.
I'm telling you, like,
that's how they feel. That's their experience.
Yeah.
That's how we feel.
Okay.
And I guess for me as a West Indian, with Rastafarians in my family, like the way Africa is venerated in the Caribbean, like that's a bitter pill. That's a hard pill for me to swallow. But that again is my experience.
Right.
That being said, I've seen how certain Black Americans act, right? And how they perceive Africa and Africans. But again, I think it plays back to that whole filtration through your local culture, right?
And I think that's, if I can just add to what you're saying.
You can speak more and more to that than me.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna like piggyback. It's, you know, there's also, so if you're gonna ask us in particular about people that feel a certain way that we don't necessarily feel, like if you're gonna say, why do African Americans, like, 'cause I don't know of any African Americans in the diaspora that have that, like, you know, but growing up, you know, if you think about it, if you're African American, right, and your blackness is what keeps you from enjoying the rights and privileges as everyone, or at least as white people. And white people are framing Africa like Tarzan movies and jungle and starvation, right? And if this is your awareness of Africa, right? So people, you know, and I remember growing up, people
have an impact.
Yeah, I mean, until you have a breakthrough and you figure out like who you are and what this really means to you, instead of ingesting the narrative that's being fed to you by people who want to cut you off from your own source of power, you know, that's where you're going to be at.
Yeah, I'll have to second that, because it doesn't help that in the North American, Western context, I believe this is true in Europe as well, the history of black people begins, and this is straight up in our education system, the history of black people begins with slavery.
Exactly.
Okay, that's where the narrative starts. So
the narrative, exactly.
When it's talked about like the heroes that look like us, right? It's not you know, a Zulu king. It's not Mansa Musa.
Right.
It's not Hannibal. You get me?
Right.
We're not talking any you know, Egyptian pharaohs here, or the land of Kush. None of this stuff. We're not talking about the universities at Timbuktu. You get me? Like, none of this is all stuff that we came to an understanding of much later than we should have. In our 20s, oftentimes, late teens. Not being taught in schools. So with that understanding at play, you have to understand there are going to be a few people who fall by the wayside. They don't see themselves. They don't see the greatness of their people in any way, because they're always told a story of, you know, Africans are, you know, got pot bellies and they're starving and always asking for money. And our history, you know, you come from slaves. Like, what was a young child supposed to think? You know what I mean?
This is all very Killmonger Black Panther. You realize that?
Okay. Moving on, I was with a couple of other brothers that came to my office, the Bricks. So they are the ones that also put up this meeting together. So we were having a conversation, and the first thing I was asked was about the music that I did the last time.
Oh, the music video.
Yes, the music video. And I saw your comments on the video when Jackson posted it. So that was why I wanted to hear directly from you and to understand your reasoning behind the comments that you made in the video.
Well, we'll start with me. I'll jump in and take the lead on that one, because I know.
Well, maybe talk about, but I guess this is your channel, so people have seen the video.
Yeah.
So what were the comments in particular? Because I think we tried to find the...
Okay, now the video was about being confident. Being confident as a black dude. I'm a black dude, I'm a black guy. And I made the song in Vietnam. We rapped it to my son, who was 8 years old, did the rap in Vietnamese, and then one of my American white friends did just to bring different ratio to it. So the music was about black empowerment. I also did the subtitling in English and in Vietnamese. So the particular spot, the particular spot where I think my brother here Hayden picked an offense was the spot where I used I'm black, but my heart is white.
That definitely stood out for me. And like most of it, I was like, okay, I see what he's doing here. And even I watched it after watching it the first time, and I was like, okay, and I was but that was one line that stuck out. Like, ooh.
That didn't, that hit all wrong.
But it's just one line, you know.
It's one line. And that to me, it was corny. It was corny. You can't make that. I'll look you in your face until you can't make that correlation. Okay. All right, because there's nothing negative about this.
Right.
None. Right. So there is no but. Okay. I got a black skin but. Right.
Because then it's really saying there's something wrong with black skin, but my heart is white, and it's saying there's something right about being white. That's the thing that was kind of like, ooh, that's just, you know what I'm saying?
I will say this. I'm not unfamiliar with your channel. All right, I'm not unfamiliar with your past work, and that video has to be seen in the context of that. All right, as much as I'm being held to account for what I'm saying, or my comments were, and I've held you to account what you made, right? We're still sitting here reasoning, and I find this to be healthy. I find this to be good. Because if ultimately this is what came out of the video, right? it moves the needle forward. I think it's progressive. I don't know how, you know your audience better than I do, right? To be honest. So how all of this is going to translate, to be interesting to see.
By what I mean, I still have to explain the reasoning behind the song. That's why we're having this conversation, to understand each other better.
I don't think there was anything misunderstood. We did not misunderstand it. It was pretty on the nose, right? Yeah. It's very on the nose. It's the execution that probably didn't resonate with us. But again, I think I'm honest enough to admit it wasn't just you said this, Turner, when we hung out with Turner, we talked about it. Turner said, that shit wasn't for us. It wasn't meant for us.
And he didn't say it, he didn't say it in a way like that ain't for us. It was more like, you know, like
don't knock the guy,
right?
Because he's making this for his audience, and he knows his audience, and you know it might might impacted you a certain way, but don't see yourself as the ultimate audience for it. It's not for you,
right? Which obviously, you're not trying to convince us that you love yourself. This is for people. You're trying to explain, you know, the way that you feel about yourself
to people who don't get it,
right? You know, and I do realize that because of your effort, if it is successful, that Black people in Vietnam will benefit for that. You know what I mean? If that, so I understand that too. Yeah, I get that.
What I am hungry to see more for me, I'll tell you what I'm hungry to see more for me. We all see the funny now. I'd like to see some of the serious now. I'd like to see you take deep dives into things in the culture here, right? And navigate that and explain stuff that we wouldn't necessarily see as a tourist, but stuff that we experience as expats living here. It doesn't have to be Black expats, just expat life and realities and seeing how we're perceived by the locals. So you got a really good handle on the language. I've been here longer than you. I can't speak as good as you, right? So you're the unicorn here. You got that advantage to go in and get locals to speak on living, working, and dealing with us in a way that we can't get to the bottom.
What do you think? In my own view, this is just, I've been to so many places in Vietnam. I've been widely received, as in treated very nice. In some places that I was not even expecting to be treated nice, but not everybody gets to be treated that way.
Right. Yeah, you have a certain amount of privilege.
Exactly.
Because you're an influencer.
Exactly.
So if somebody might look exactly like you, who doesn't have that same access, might not be treated as well. And so I appreciate that you're thinking about that.
Yes.
You know. Yeah.
So my question is, what do you guys think? How do we? Like, I was talking to the guys that came up to my office the other day. I was like, each and every one of us have a powerful voice, irrespective of how many audience you have. You have a voice in your working place by being a good person. You have a voice in that school where you are teaching, in the place where you are going to get your groceries, to behave nice. To behave nice to the people who attend to you, because whatever precedent you set, it follows on for the people that are coming 5 years, 10 years after you.
I absolutely 100% unequivocally agree with that.
Sure.
It's something that I've always, since when I first arrived here, I mean, there was even less Black folks then than there are now, like significantly less. And that's how I rationalized it. Like, I'm probably the first Black person they've met in the flesh off of television. Right?
Yeah.
So it's on me to kind of like leave some candy behind. Whatever the interaction is, I want it to be positive. I don't want them thinking all Black people are like that, because that's what they will think. This will be probably the only interaction for a long time.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure, right? I feel though that I'm gonna just leave it at that. I'm not gonna go any further because I was just gonna overcomplicate a good thing.
I mean, that was pretty much my job when I came here, which is, you know, I came here as a Fulbright. Fulbright is it's a prestigious scholarship that's run by the U.S. State Department, and they place scholars and teachers in underserved communities around the world. And I happened to be in Mitau in the Mekong Delta. So I lived in the Mekong Delta for a year. And you better believe there's like no Westerners down there.
Never mind black.
Never mind black people. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, so literally, so, you know, I had to go from like just getting stared at, you know, and having to work through that. Like, or people like pointing at me or taking pictures of me, you know, to like just, okay, just waving and then being like, you know, but realizing like I am the like this, whatever happens in this interaction is gonna be, this is what black people are like. Oh, I met a black person, he was like this. So it is, we have to be even more magnanimous. We have to have an even more generous spirit, you know, and be stronger when we have those tough moments, you know. That's our responsibility. And it's going to affect the way that they treat the next one and the next one. That's why I'm so happy to be a teacher. Because I can talk about, especially with my teen classes, because I just ask them questions and like make them deconstruct why they think the way they think about whatever it is, race, culture, like, you know, who they are in this world, you know, but the fact that I'm black, I'm giving them an idea of who a black person might be, rather than just what they
that
get.
we have, and just how aligned we are on a lot of things, right? One of the things I love about the Vietnamese people that I've met here is just their ability to see those parallels. You know, and from a time like, you're African, we're from black families too. We don't sit down with a plate of food to ourselves. No, the bowl of chicken go in the middle, the bowl of rice go in the middle, the bowl of vegetables go in the middle. And likely we're serving our friends and family, right? Something as simple as that is something that we share in common with Vietnamese people, right? On a very, very minute cultural level, right? But it's significant. And to, you know, to have those experiences and for people to see, oh, it's the same. You know, it goes a long way. You're 100% right about us having that responsibility. Don't take anything away from it at all.
Okay, because at the end of the day, we all have individual characteristics. So as you agree with me, I know there are a lot of people who are still going out there being very aggressive, being very insultive, being very, I don't know how to put it, but
in your audience at large.
In my audience at large. So my target is the black folks, because whatever any black person does, irrespective of your nationality, directly or indirectly affects me as well.
That's a tough one, man.
It's what we went back to earlier, and you're asking about, or you're commenting about how you know, black people, we have like individual ways of seeing things.
Oh, we're not a
monolith, right?
And that's a tough position.
But at the same time, it's also true that we are subject to stereotypes that are placed on our
because we stand out.
Right.
Everywhere we go, we stand out.
Yeah, it hits different, is all I'm saying.
It's different.
But you know, but then the other side of that is, see, I also don't want to be that person that's like, okay, the way that you behave is going to affect me. So I don't want to be policing what other black people do either. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Because that's respectability politics. I'm
when I first came to Vietnam in 2005, there were black people. There were enough black people here. Between 2005 and 2010, that 5-year stretch, most of the black people that you met here were African guys that, particularly down the fam, there were a lot of African brothers. And part of the reason I got the stiff arm from them was because my circumstances and there were very, very different. Most of them were trying to get to Europe or North America. And somewhere along had been told that if they come to Southeast Asia, they can get visas easier, right? Was it true? No, but yet here they were. Right. It was in between 2009 and 2010 that the Vietnamese government basically kicked a lot of them out.
Yeah.
Most, if not all of them.
I was aware of that.
bro, you have right now. You have an African restaurant in the fam. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that never existed during that period.
Got it.
Okay, anybody that tried,
there was,
would
but
shut them down.
But just one or two,
right? They didn't want us there. There were no women.
Nothing like that.
And I think that's really, really important to recognize that the lack of women and the preponderance of men makes for an unbalanced situation, not just in how we're perceived, but how we actually behave.
Sure.
All right, we've all witnessed the antics of a football team on the bus traveling to an away game.
Yeah.
Okay? When too many dudes are together and the testosterone takes over, it shapes the way we behave. When there are women present, we don't behave like that, right? I feel like today, there are more of us than there were before. There were a lot of women. It's more diasporic.
Yeah.
Like, there are a shit ton of British women here. Black British women, a lot, okay? And I think it makes for the way we're perceived to be more positive, right? Because like you said earlier, none of us are mediocre. We're all coming here with degrees and accomplishments because we have to. We have no choice, all right? There's some guys here who, they're Italian and somehow can find a job teaching English. We don't have that luxury, right? Especially if you don't have the right passport, okay? So I feel like today's perception is better. The needle has moved. Things that you're doing, things that we're all doing in our own little ways, like you said, whether it's at school teaching these kids, right? Whether it's we're in the regular workplace, like it's all helping to shape the way we're perceived in Vietnam and move that needle forward.
All right, getting close to the final question right here. I want to ask both of you, like, in the context of Black versus Asians or Vietnamese or whatever you might want to call it, do you think that we, as minority groups, is there any way for us to communicate a whole lot better than we are doing right now?
Learn Vietnamese. Do what you did.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
True that. True that.
Plain and simple. And as a community, it's the one thing that'll give us an advantage over the average white foreigner out here. To be honest, most of them don't make a fucking effort. Not even the slightest.
And because I was always under the pretense that a lot of folks come here, I've seen people who throw tantrums because they think, oh, Vietnamese, why don't they speak English? I was like,
so stupid.
Hold on, who do you see?
We know somebody.
Not just black folks, but I've seen foreigners who are here and they get frustrated like, oh no, there are not a lot of English speakers here. I was like, you walked up to the embassy to seek for a visa and you booked the flight to fly to a foreign nation, and you were requesting for them to speak your language instead of you to make an effort to learn their language.
It's back-assed.
It's a very colonial throwback, kind of post-colonial kind of attitude, mentality. Exactly. That's why, no shade to my Tao Dien folks, but a lot of people move to Tao Dien because they get to live in a bubble and live around other foreigners and
right? That's deep. that's deep.
But people want to live and then, you know, and treat it like, like it's like, you know, like it's the old days, Indochina, you know. But if you have to have, you know, I've taken Vietnamese lessons. My Vietnamese is atrocious. It's not where it needs to be.
Yeah, you're God level, dude.
yeah, for real, man. You know,
you're blue-haired Super Saiyan.
But if we do, the narrative about us will not be dependent on American movies or, you know, what this person said or what that. You know, they can hear who we are from our own voices.
Directly from us.
You know, exactly. And that's important.
And that's why what you're doing is important. I know you were focusing on making man's laugh. All right, and, you know, he's a comedian too. That's an effective way of being seen.
So I would want a situation where we, first of all, just like me and Vades said the last time, we need to cleanse our house from within. before we can now project ourselves outside, because if we are still having squabbles here and there and still having this divide, this bridge, there's no way, absolutely no way we can move forward and try to present this perfect black picture to the rest of the world.
I would only push back on that in that there is no perfect black image. What there is a kaleidoscope, right? I think we have to resist that urge. Yeah, we are not a monolith, but we do have a shared history and a shared lived experience. The two things can be true, right? It's finding that balance between the two, right? Because I don't think there's any long-term benefit to projecting a false picture of perfection, right? I'm not trying to be like China here, right? Like, no, dude, it ain't like that. Your McDonald's Big Mac does not look like it does in the advertising. Okay, we are flawed to some degree, but I think that's where our beauty is. I think that's where you know, that differences, those subtle differences are what
it's the colors.
Make the colors.
Make it very colorful.
And we have to be able to be flawed. That's how we know we've made it, you know? A lot of other people get to be flawed all the time, but this idea that we have to be perfect or we have to be exactly like this, I mean, this is how we know when equality, I think Chris Rock said this, we will know that equality has been achieved when we can make mistakes. We can make like a bad movie, a bad video, a bad song, or just be mediocre and it still be, and not be crucified for it. You know, that's not that that's something we want to strive for, you know what I'm saying? But we have to have room for that.
The way the teachers are being maligned, the way you have to have a certain name, a certain skin color, a certain nationality for you to be able to get a job. Even just for the fact that, oh, wait, are you black? Or don't even apply. That is something that needs to be looked at. I'm not saying Vietnam is a beautiful country, it's very welcoming, but there are still so many people who have some mentality like this.
I mean, do you hear that a lot? Like the parents who don't want black teachers for their kids?
I've heard that from some teacher friends.
Do you believe that?
I don't believe that in my experience, because I've been like, even in schools where I've taught before, I've seen like, if you are very nice to the kids are the ones that even tell the parents that, oh, this teacher is super nice to me, he's awesome. It's all about your personality. That's what I think in my own experience is the way you handle yourself in those schools. If you are there and behaving like a jackass, they will definitely think you're
a jackass.
Just as I said, I'm on a mission to bring us closer and to give a positive outlook to us as black folks. There's still a whole lot of series that I'm still going to do, and I'm so blessed that you guys honored my invitation to be here today.
No problem.
I'm so happy to
apologies
call
for
you my brothers.
Apologies for being late.
Yeah, man.
You know,
which is like
it's the blackest thing.
It's the blackest thing we can do.
No,
that's really hot in this country.
That used to be my line, like African. It's African time. That used to be my.
When does it start? When we get here.
That used to be my line. So, black people time, African time.
The party starts
hot
when we get
sun time.
Hot sun time.
Yeah, but
so,
thank you, man.
Yeah, well, man, I'm blessed. I'm honored that
Yes.
we can have a medium like this to, you know, discuss about things, and subsequently we've been doing a whole lot of stuff promoting African businesses and visiting and trying to put the word out there that there are a lot of black folks here who have the right intentions, who are doing the right things, and they are not here for drugs or for scam or for all the negative stuff that being put out in the media.
There are drugs?
A lot. Okay. So I'm very happy that we are on this line of action right now to be able to put out the positive image for all the black, whether you from whatever country you are from. Once you're black, you're one of us. So I want to put it that way because we are all the same, irrespective of your nationality. It's just a miscommunication or a misunderstanding or something that was lost in translation somewhere. But I believe that if we have a positive attitude towards ourselves, we have a united front, there is absolutely nothing we cannot achieve. So I am very thankful to Mr. Hayden and Mr. Juanza for honoring today's invitation. And I hope that we will continue on this journey to better the lives of Black people in Vietnam. So, yeah, you're welcome. So guys, that's the end of today's edition, but subsequently we'll be having a lot of Black folks come on this show. This has been African Roots, and we hope you enjoyed today's edition of the show, and hope to see you soon. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
That was awesome, man.
Appreciate you as well.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having
Thanks,
us.
brother. How the boys doing?
Well, they're good, man. Eating all the food in the house.
Of course.
You know.
Thank you so much. Tại vì công việc của em rất là đặc biệt, rất là lạ. Em có bao giờ gặp khó khăn về công việc của em?
Em phải chia sẻ với anh Nam như thế này.
Every week on our YouTube channel, AfroViet TV.